In today's gripping story, a wealthy heiress's compassion leads her to take in a homeless man and his child from the rain. But what happens next will leave you in shock. Don't forget to subscribe for more captivating tales, and if you'd like to support our channel, feel free to make a donation through the pinned link in the comments. Now, sit back and enjoy the story. Celeste Worthington, heiress to the Worthington fortune, had always lived a life of luxury and privilege. At 28 years old, she was known for her philanthropy and social status in New York City's elite circles. On a particularly dreary autumn evening, Celeste found herself caught in an unexpected downpour as she left a charity gala. Hurrying down the rain-slicked streets in her designer heels, Celeste ducked under the awning of a closed boutique to wait out the worst of the storm. As she stood there, shivering despite her expensive coat, she noticed a figure huddled in the shadows of a nearby alley. Curiosity piqued, Celeste peered closer and gasped at what she saw. A man, clearly homeless, sat on a piece of cardboard, cradling a small child in his arms. The child couldn't have been more than 3 years old, and both were soaked to the bone, trembling from the cold. The man's eyes met Celeste's, and in that moment, she saw a depth of desperation and love that shook her to her core. Without thinking, Celeste approached the pair. "Excuse me," she said softly, her voice barely audible over the pounding rain. "Are you all right?" The man looked up, his weathered face a mix of wariness and hope. "We're managing, miss," he replied, his voice hoarse. "Just trying to stay dry." Celeste's heart clenched as she watched the little girl burrow closer to the man's chest, seeking warmth. In that instant, she made a decision that would change the course of her life forever. Still holding the child close, Celeste quickly hailed a taxi, and soon they were on their way to her penthouse apartment in the Upper East Side. As they rode in silence, Celeste couldn't help but steal glances at her unexpected companions. The man, who introduced himself as Jack, looked to be in his late 30s, though the hardships of his life had aged him beyond his years. His clothes were threadbare and patched, but clean, a testament to his effort to maintain dignity in dire circumstances. The little girl, Emma, had fallen asleep in Jack's arms, her small face peaceful despite the chaos of the evening. Celeste felt a surge of protectiveness wash over her as she watched the child sleep. When they arrived at her building, Celeste ushered them inside, past the shocked doorman and into the private elevator. As they ascended to the penthouse, she couldn't help but notice Jack's wide-eyed amazement at the opulence surrounding them. "Here we are," Celeste said, as she opened the door to her spacious apartment. "Please, make yourselves at home. I'll find some dry clothes and towels for you both." As Jack and Emma stepped into the warmth of the apartment, Celeste hurried to gather supplies. Her mind was racing with questions and concerns, but one thing was clear: she couldn't turn her back on these two souls in need. Little did Celeste know that this act of kindness would set in motion a series of events that would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself, her family, and the world around her. As she returned with armfuls of towels and clothing, she had no idea that her life was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. As Celeste handed over the towels and clothing to Jack and Emma, she couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions: compassion, curiosity, and a hint of apprehension swirled within her. She directed them to the guest bathroom, where they could clean up and change. While Jack and Emma were getting settled, Celeste busied herself in the kitchen, preparing some hot soup and sandwiches. Her mind raced with questions about her unexpected guests. What circumstances had led them to the streets? How long had they been struggling? And most pressingly, what would she do next? When Jack and Emma emerged from the bathroom, they looked like different people. Jack's face, now clean-shaven, revealed a handsome man with kind eyes and a strong jawline. Emma, dressed in one of Celeste's old t-shirts that hung like a dress on her tiny frame, looked angelic with her golden curls framing her face. "Thank you, Miss Worthington," Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. "You have no idea what this means to us." Celeste smiled warmly. "Please, call me Celeste, and it's my pleasure. Come, I've made some food. You must be hungry." As they sat around Celeste's dining table, an unlikely trio, the atmosphere began to relax. Emma, now wide awake, chattered happily as she spooned soup into her mouth. Jack, though still reserved, began to open up. "I never thought I'd be in this situation," he confessed, his eyes downcast. "A few years ago, I had a good job, a home, a family, then everything fell apart." Celeste listened intently as Jack recounted his story. He had been a successful architect, with a loving wife and a newborn daughter. But when his wife was diagnosed with an aggressive form of cancer, their world crumbled. Medical bills piled up, and Jack was forced to choose between work and caring for his dying wife. In the end, he lost everything: his job, his home, and his beloved wife. "Emma is all I have left," Jack said, his voice breaking. "I've tried so hard to provide for her, to keep her safe and healthy, but it's been a constant struggle." Celeste felt tears prick her eyes as she listened. She had always considered herself compassionate, donating to charities and attending fundraisers. But hearing Jack's story brought the reality of hardship into sharp focus. As the night wore on, Celeste found herself sharing her own story. She told them about growing up in the lap of luxury, the pressure of being the sole heir to the Worthington empire, and her secret desire to make a real difference in the world. "Sometimes I feel like I'm just playing at being good," she admitted, "writing checks and attending galas. But am I really helping anyone?" Jack reached across the table and squeezed her hand gently. "You helped us tonight," he said softly. "That's real. That matters." As Emma began to doze off at the table, Celeste showed them to the guest room. She couldn't help but smile as she watched Jack tuck Emma into bed, planting a gentle kiss on her forehead. Before retiring to her own room, Celeste made a decision. In the morning, she would reach out to her contacts, determined to help Jack find employment and a stable living situation. It was the least she could do. However, as Celeste drifted off to sleep that night, she had no idea that her world was about to be turned upside down. The simple act of kindness she had shown would lead to revelations that would shake the very foundations of her life, and everything she thought she knew about her family. In the quiet of the night, as the rain continued to patter against the windows, fate was weaving an intricate web of connections and secrets that would soon come to light. And when they did, nothing would ever be the same for Celeste, Jack, or little Emma. The stage was set for a journey of discovery, redemption, and unexpected love, one that would challenge Celeste's perceptions and force her to confront truths she never knew existed. As dawn broke over the New York skyline, Celeste stirred from her slumber. For a moment, she lay in bed, wondering if the events of the previous night had been a dream. But as the fog of sleep cleared, she remembered her unexpected guests and felt a surge of purpose. Slipping on her robe, Celeste padded quietly to the guest room. She gently opened the door, peeking inside. The sight that greeted her made her heart swell. Jack was curled protectively around Emma, both still fast asleep. In the soft morning light, they looked peaceful, unburdened by the hardships that had brought them to her doorstep. Closing the door silently, Celeste made her way to the kitchen. She busied herself preparing a hearty breakfast, her mind whirring with plans. She would call her father's old friend, Richard Hawthorne, who ran a successful architectural firm. Surely, he could help Jack find employment. And she knew of a women's shelter that had recently opened a transitional housing program. Perhaps they could assist with temporary accommodation. As the aroma of coffee and bacon filled the apartment, Celeste heard the patter of small feet. Emma appeared in the kitchen doorway, her golden curls tousled from sleep. "Good morning, sweetheart," Celeste said warmly. "Are you hungry?" Emma nodded shyly, her big blue eyes taking in the spread on the counter. Celeste lifted her onto a stool and placed a plate of scrambled eggs and toast in front of her. As Emma ate, Celeste chatted with her, marveling at the child's resilience and sweet nature. Jack joined them soon after, looking rested but slightly uncomfortable in his borrowed clothes. "Miss Worthington, Celeste," he corrected himself. "I can't thank you enough for your kindness, but we should be going. We've imposed on you enough." Celeste shook her head firmly. "Nonsense. You're not going anywhere just yet. Eat your breakfast, and then we'll talk about next steps." Over the meal, Celeste shared her ideas with Jack. His eyes widened with hope as she mentioned the possibility of employment and housing assistance. I don't know what to say," he stammered. "This is more than I could have ever hoped for." As they cleared the dishes together, a comfortable camaraderie settled between them. Celeste found herself charmed by Jack's quiet strength and his obvious devotion to Emma. For his part, Jack seemed in awe of Celeste's generosity and determination to help. Just as Celeste was about to make her calls, her phone rang. It was her mother, Evelyn Worthington. "Darling," her mother's crisp voice came through the speaker. "I need you to come to the house immediately. There's something we need to discuss." Celeste frowned. Her relationship with her parents, particularly her mother, had always been strained. Evelyn was known for her cold demeanor and obsession with social standing. "Mother, I'm in the middle of something important. Can it wait?" "No, it cannot," Evelyn replied, her tone brooking no argument. "Be here in an hour." The line went dead. Sighing, Celeste turned to Jack. "I'm so sorry, but I have to step out for a bit. Family matter. Please, make yourselves at home. I'll be back as soon as I can, and then we'll get everything sorted out." Jack nodded understandingly, though Celeste could see a flicker of worry in his eyes. She squeezed his arm reassuringly. "I promise, I'll be back. You're safe here." As Celeste left her apartment, she couldn't shake the feeling that something significant was about to happen. Her mother's summons was unusual, and there was an urgency in her voice that Celeste had rarely heard before. Little did she know that the meeting she was about to have would unearth long-buried secrets and set in motion a chain of events that would irrevocably change her life, as well as the lives of Jack and Emma. The truth that awaited her at her family's mansion would challenge everything she thought she knew about her heritage, her family's legacy, and her own identity. As her car wound through the streets of New York, Celeste's mind was still with the little makeshift family she had left in her apartment. She had no idea that her worlds were about to collide in the most unexpected and shocking way possible. The stage was set for revelations that would shake the very foundations of the Worthington Empire and force Celeste to question everything she had ever believed about herself and her place in the world. Celeste's sleek black car pulled up to the imposing gates of the Worthington estate. As she approached the mansion, a sense of foreboding settled over her. The grand house, once a symbol of comfort and privilege, now felt oppressive and full of secrets. Evelyn Worthington was waiting in the study, a room Celeste had always found intimidating with its dark wood paneling and shelves lined with leather-bound books. Her mother sat rigidly in a high-backed chair, her silver hair impeccably styled, her face a mask of composure. "Celeste, darling." "Do sit down," Evelyn said, gesturing to the chair across from her. "There's something of great importance we need to discuss." As Celeste took her seat, she noticed a large manila envelope on the desk between them. Her father, Theodore Worthington III, entered the room, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by a grim expression. "What's going on?" Celeste asked, her anxiety mounting. Evelyn took a deep breath. "Celeste, what I'm about to tell you will come as a shock, but please understand, everything we've done has been to protect you and the family name." With trembling hands, Evelyn opened the envelope and pulled out a stack of documents. "You are not our biological daughter," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The world seemed to tilt on its axis as Celeste struggled to process her mother's words. "What? That's impossible," she stammered. Theodore stepped forward, his voice gentle. "It's true, sweetheart. We adopted you when you were just a baby. Your biological parents, Well, it's complicated. As Celeste sat in stunned silence, Evelyn continued. Your biological mother was a maid who worked for us. She had an affair with your grandfather, Theodore Worthington II. The revelation hit Celeste like a physical blow. She was not only adopted but the product of a scandalous affair involving her own grandfather. Her mind reeled as she tried to make sense of this information. What happened to my biological mother? Celeste asked, her voice barely audible. Evelyn's face tightened. She died in childbirth. Your grandfather was devastated. He begged us to adopt you, to raise you as our own, and keep the secret to protect the family name. Celeste felt a surge of anger. And my biological father? My grandfather? Why am I only learning about this now? Theodore sighed heavily. Your grandfather passed away last week. On his deathbed. He made us promise to tell you the truth. He left a letter for you, explaining everything. With shaking hands, Celeste took the sealed envelope her father held out. As she began to read, tears blurred her vision. The letter was filled with remorse, love, and a desperate plea for forgiveness. Her grandfather described falling in love with the young maid, their secret relationship, and the guilt that had haunted him for decades. As Celeste read, a memory stirred, a faded photograph she had once found in the attic, of a beautiful young woman with golden curls and striking blue eyes. At the time, Evelyn had dismissed it as an old family friend, but now Celeste realized she had been looking at her biological mother. Why? Celeste asked, looking up from the letter. Why keep this from me for so long? Evelyn's composure finally cracked. We thought we were protecting you. The scandal would have ruined the family, ruined your future. We loved you as our own from the moment we held you. You are our daughter, Celeste, in every way that matters. As the weight of the truth settled over her, Celeste's mind raced back to Jack and Emma, waiting in her apartment. The irony wasn't lost on her. She, who had always felt like an outsider in her own family, had more in common with the homeless man and his daughter than she ever imagined. There's more, Theodore said softly. Your grandfather left you something. A separate inheritance, outside of the family business. He wanted to make amends, to give you the choice to forge your own path if you wished. Celeste stood abruptly, overwhelmed by the revelations. I need some air. I need time to process all of this. As she stumbled out of the study, her world spinning, Celeste realized that everything she thought she knew about herself had been a carefully constructed lie. But amidst the turmoil, a strange sense of freedom began to take root. She was no longer bound by the expectations of being a Worthington heiress. She could choose her own path, make her own legacy. And perhaps, in helping Jack and Emma, she had already taken the first step on that new journey. As Celeste drove back to her apartment, her mind whirled with possibilities. Little did she know that the revelations of her past were about to collide with her present in ways she could never have imagined, setting the stage for even more shocking discoveries. Celeste's mind was a whirlwind of emotions as she made her way back to her apartment. The revelation of her true parentage had shaken her to her core, but there was an underlying current of anticipation. She felt as if she was on the brink of something life-changing, though she couldn't quite put her finger on what it was. As she entered her apartment, she was greeted by the sound of laughter. Following the joyful noise, she found Jack and Emma in the living room, engaged in an impromptu pillow fight. The sight brought a smile to her face, momentarily pushing aside the turmoil of her recent discoveries. "Celeste!" Emma squealed, running to hug her legs. "You're back!" Jack straightened up, his face flushed from the play. "I hope you don't mind," he said, gesturing to the disarrayed pillows. "We were just—" "It's perfect," Celeste interrupted, surprising herself with the warmth in her voice. This place needed some laughter. As they settled down, Celeste couldn't help but study Jack's features more closely. There was something familiar about him, something she couldn't quite place. Jack, she began hesitantly. I know this might sound strange, but do you know anything about your family history? Jack's brow furrowed. Not much, to be honest. I was raised by my grandmother. She didn't talk much about our family. Why do you ask? Celeste took a deep breath. I've just learned some surprising things about my own family, and there's something about you that seems familiar. She proceeded to share the story of her adoption and her true parentage. As she spoke, she noticed Jack's expression change from curiosity to shock. Your biological mother, he said slowly. You mentioned she had blonde curls and blue eyes. Celeste nodded, her heart beginning to race. Yes. Why? Jack stood up abruptly and went to his backpack. He pulled out a worn photograph and handed it to Celeste. This is the only picture I have of my mother. My grandmother gave it to me before she died. Celeste gasped as she looked at the photo. It was unmistakably the same woman from the picture she had found in her family's attic. Jack, she whispered, I think we might be siblings. The revelation hung in the air between them, both too stunned to speak. Emma, sensing the tension, climbed into Jack's lap, her small hand patting his cheek comfortingly. But how? Jack finally managed. I always thought... Celeste shook her head. I don't know all the details yet, but it seems our mother had a relationship with our grandfather. She died giving birth to me, but you must have been born earlier. As they pieced together their shared history, a bond began to form between them. The unlikely circumstances that had brought them together now seemed like the work of fate. All these years, Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. I thought I was alone in the world, except for Emma. And now... Celeste reached out and squeezed his hand. Now you have family. We both do. As the reality of their connection sank in, Celeste's mind raced with the implications. Jack and Emma weren't just people she had helped on a whim. They were family. Her family. We need to get a DNA test to confirm this, Celeste said, her practical side asserting itself. And then, well, everything changes. Jack nodded, still looking dazed. What does this mean for us? For Emma? Celeste looked at the little girl, her niece, and felt a surge of protectiveness. It means you're not alone anymore. It means we face whatever comes next together. As they sat there, this newly discovered family unit, Celeste realized that her world had shifted on its axis once again. The inheritance her grandfather had left her, the choice to forge her own path, it all took on new meaning now. But even as hope and excitement bubbled up within her, a nagging thought persisted. There were still unanswered questions, still pieces of the puzzle missing. And something told Celeste that the revelations weren't over yet. Little did they know that across town, in the Worthington mansion, Evelyn was making a frantic phone call, her usually composed voice tinged with panic. He's found her, she hissed into the phone. We need to act now before everything unravels. The stage was set for even more shocking discoveries, as the past and present collided in ways that would test the newfound bonds of this unexpected family. As Celeste, Jack, and Emma began to process the revelation of their shared history, the atmosphere in the apartment was charged with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Celeste couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to uncover, more secrets lurking in the shadows of their family's past. Jack, Celeste said, breaking the contemplative silence that had fallen over them. Tell me more about your grandmother. Did she ever mention anything about the Worthingtons? Jack furrowed his brow, sifting through memories. You know, now that you mention it, there was something. I always thought it was just the ramblings of an old woman. But he trailed off, lost in thought. What is it? Celeste pressed gently. She used to talk about a grand house and powerful people who had wronged our family, Jack said slowly. She would get agitated, saying that one day the truth would come out and justice would be served. I never understood what she meant. As Jack spoke, a chill ran down Celeste's spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something sinister lurking beneath the surface of their family history. Meanwhile, across town, Evelyn Worthington paced nervously in her study. The phone call she had just made weighed heavily on her conscience. She glanced at the portrait of her late father-in-law, Theodore Worthington II, that hung on the wall. "What have we done?" she whispered to the stern face in the painting. Back at Celeste's apartment, the newfound siblings decided to dig deeper into their shared past. Celeste used her connections to expedite a DNA test, while also reaching out to a private investigator she trusted. As days passed, Celeste, Jack, and Emma fell into a comfortable routine. Celeste helped Jack secure a job interview at a prestigious architectural firm, and Emma started attending a nearby preschool. The bond between them grew stronger, filled with shared laughter and the joy of discovering each other. However, unbeknownst to them, dark forces were stirring. Evelyn's frantic phone call had set in motion a chain of events that would soon come crashing into their lives. One evening, as Celeste was preparing dinner, her phone rang. It was the private investigator. "Miss Worthington," he said, his voice grave. "I've uncovered something you need to see immediately. It's about your mother, and it's not good." Celeste's heart raced as she agreed to meet him. She quickly explained the situation to Jack, who insisted on coming along. They left Emma with a trusted neighbor and headed out into the night, unaware that they were being watched. At a dimly lit cafe, the investigator slid a file across the table. "Your mother's death," he said quietly. "It wasn't from childbirth complications as you were told. There's evidence suggesting it was orchestrated." Celeste felt the blood drain from her face. "What are you saying?" she whispered. "I'm saying, Miss Worthington, that your mother's death may not have been an accident, and the orders, they may have come from within your family." As Celeste and Jack pored over the documents, a sinister picture began to emerge. There were financial records showing large sums of money transferred to offshore accounts, medical reports that had been altered, and most damning of all, a series of letters that hinted at a conspiracy to take care of the problem. "This can't be real," Jack said, his voice shaking. "Are you saying our grandfather, our own family, murdered our mother?" Before the investigator could respond, the cafe's window shattered as a bullet tore through the air. Chaos erupted as patrons screamed and dove for cover. Celeste felt Jack's strong arms pulling her down, shielding her with his body. As they huddled on the floor, hearts pounding, Celeste's mind raced. Who was behind this attack? How deep did this conspiracy go? And most pressingly, was Emma safe? In the distance, sirens wailed as they approached the scene. Celeste and Jack exchanged a look of determination. They had stumbled upon a truth that someone was willing to kill to keep hidden. But they were no longer alone. They had each other, and they had a reason to fight. As they were ushered out of the cafe by police officers, Celeste's phone buzzed with a text. It was from an unknown number, and the message sent a chill down her spine. "You're digging too deep. For your own safety, and the safety of those you love, stop now." The siblings realized that their journey to uncover the truth had taken a dangerous turn. The past they were unearthing was darker than they could have imagined, and powerful forces were aligning against them. But with Emma to protect and justice for their mother to seek, they knew they couldn't back down now. As they sped back to check on Emma, both Celeste and Jack were acutely aware that their lives had changed irrevocably. The search for truth had become a fight for survival, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The following days were a whirlwind of paranoia and frantic planning for Celeste and Jack. After ensuring Emma's safety by placing her with a trusted friend who had top-notch security, they threw themselves into unraveling the mystery surrounding their mother's death and the Worthington family's dark secrets. Celeste's apartment became a makeshift war room, walls covered with timelines, photographs, and sticky notes connecting various pieces of evidence. The siblings worked tirelessly, fueled by a mix of caffeine and righteous anger. As they dug deeper, a complex web of deceit began to emerge. It seemed that Theodore Worthington II, their grandfather, had been involved in more than just a scandalous affair. There were indications of embezzlement, political manipulation, and even ties to organized crime. "Look at this," Jack said one evening, pointing to a series of financial records. "Large sums of money were moved through shell companies right around the time of our mother's death. And look who authorized the transfers." Celeste leaned in, her eyes widening as she recognized the signature. "Evelyn," she whispered. Our adoptive mother." The realization that Evelyn was deeply involved in the conspiracy shook Celeste to her core. She had always had a strained relationship with her adoptive mother, but this level of betrayal was unfathomable. As they continued to piece together the puzzle, they received an unexpected ally. Theodore Worthington III, Celeste's adoptive father, reached out through a secure channel. "I can't say much," his message read, "but know that not everything is as it seems. Trust no one, not even me. Your mother left something for you. Look where the sun touches the water at dawn." The cryptic message left them puzzled but hopeful. It seemed that even within the Worthington family, there were fractures and conflicting loyalties. Determined to follow the clue, Celeste and Jack found themselves at the family's lake house at dawn the next day. As the first rays of sunlight skimmed across the water, they noticed a glint of something metallic beneath a partially submerged rock. With trembling hands, Celeste retrieved a waterproof container. Inside, they found a USB drive and a handwritten note from their mother. "My darling children," it began, "if you're reading this, then the worst has happened, and I am no longer with you. But know that I loved you both more than life itself. The truth is hidden in plain sight, woven into the very fabric of the Worthington legacy." Their mother had discovered this and had been silenced to protect the family's secrets. But the most shocking revelation was yet to come. Among the files was a DNA test result that showed Theodore Worthington II was not actually Celeste's biological grandfather. The affair had been a cover for an even bigger secret. Celeste's true lineage traced back to a powerful political figure who had used the Worthingtons to hide his indiscretion. This information was a game changer. It explained the lengths to which certain people had gone to keep the truth hidden and added a new layer of complexity to their already tangled family history. As the siblings sat in stunned silence, processing the weight of these revelations, Celeste's phone buzzed with a news alert. The headline made her blood run cold. "Worthington Industries, CEO found dead in apparent suicide." Evelyn Worthington, the woman who had raised Celeste, was dead. But was it really suicide, or had the web of lies finally begun to unravel, claiming its first victim? Celeste and Jack exchanged a determined look. They now held the power to bring down an empire built on deceit, but doing so would change their lives forever. The truth was within their grasp, but the cost of revealing it might be higher than they could imagine. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the lake, Celeste and Jack knew they stood at a crossroads. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but turning back was no longer an option. With Emma's future and their mother's memory at stake, they steeled themselves for the battle ahead. Little did they know that the most shocking twist in their family saga was yet to come, one that would challenge everything they thought they knew about loyalty, love, and the true meaning of family. The news of Evelyn Worthington's death sent shockwaves through New York's elite circles and threw Celeste and Jack's world into further chaos. As the media frenzy erupted around the apparent suicide of the Worthington matriarch, the siblings found themselves at the center of a storm they were ill-prepared to weather. Celeste's phone rang incessantly with calls from reporters, family friends, and business associates, all seeking comments or explanations. Jack, still adjusting to his newfound connection to this high-profile family, struggled to maintain his composure as the gravity of their situation became increasingly apparent. Amidst the turmoil, they received another cryptic message from Theodore Worthington III. "The Queen has fallen. The game changes now. Trust the knight who moves in L. As they pondered the meaning of this message, a knock at the door startled them. Cautiously opening it, they found themselves face to face with Richard Hawthorne, the family friend and architectural firm owner Celeste had initially planned to contact about a job for Jack. "I think it's time we talked," Richard said gravely, his eyes darting nervously down the hallway. "May I come in?" Once inside, Richard revealed himself to be the knight Theodore had mentioned. He had been working undercover for years, gathering evidence of the Worthington family's illicit activities at the behest of a secret government task force. "Your mother," Richard explained, his voice thick with emotion. "She was my partner in this operation. We were close to exposing everything when—" He trailed off, the implication hanging heavy in the air. This revelation stunned Celeste and Jack. Their mother hadn't just been an innocent victim, she had been a hero, working to bring down a corrupt empire from within. As Richard shared more details about the investigation, a plan began to form. With Evelyn's death creating a power vacuum and confusion within the Worthington Empire, there was a unique opportunity to bring everything to light. However, the stakes were higher than ever. The political figure implicated in Celeste's true parentage was now a leading presidential candidate. Exposing the truth would not only bring down the Worthingtons but could potentially reshape the political landscape of the entire country. As they strategized late into the night, Celeste couldn't shake a nagging feeling that they were missing something crucial. The pieces fit together almost too neatly, and years of living in a world of secrets and lies had taught her to question everything. Their planning was interrupted by an urgent call from the friend watching Emma. "There are men outside," she whispered frantically. "They're trying to get in. I think they're here for Emma." Without hesitation, Celeste, Jack, and Richard sprang into action. They raced across town, hearts pounding with fear for Emma's safety. As they approached the apartment, they saw two menacing figures attempting to break down the door. In a display of protective fury, Jack tackled one of the men while Celeste and Richard subdued the other. As the police sirens wailed in the distance, they secured the would-be kidnappers. Emma, thankfully unharmed but shaken, clung to Jack as he soothed her. The little girl's safety had become the eye of the storm, the one constant in their tumultuous world. As the police took statements and secured the scene, Celeste noticed something odd about one of the attackers, a familiar tattoo peeking out from under his sleeve. With a jolt, she realized she had seen that same distinctive mark in one of the photographs from her mother's files. This was no random kidnapping attempt. These men were connected to the very heart of the conspiracy they were unraveling. As the adrenaline of the confrontation wore off, Celeste, Jack, and Richard regrouped, now with Emma safely in their midst. The attack had made one thing crystal clear: they were running out of time. "We need to go public with what we know," Jack said firmly, holding Emma close. Celeste nodded in agreement, but Richard looked hesitant. "If we do that, there's no turning back. The fallout will be catastrophic, and not just for the Worthingtons. Are you prepared for what that means?" As they stood at this crossroads, each weighing the consequences of their next move, Celeste's phone buzzed with a new message. It was from an unknown number, but the content made her blood run cold. "I know the truth about everything. Meet me where it all began, or the next time, we won't miss. You have 24 hours. The message was accompanied by a photo that made Celeste's heart stop. It was a picture of her as a baby, held by her biological mother, with Theodore Worthington II and another man whose face was obscured standing nearby. The location was unmistakable. It was the garden of the Worthington estate. As they stared at the photo, the full weight of their situation crashed down upon them. The final confrontation was at hand, and the truth they had fought so hard to uncover was about to come to light, for better or worse. With determination in their eyes, Celeste and Jack knew what they had to do. It was time to return to where it all began and face their destiny head-on. The Worthington estate loomed before them, its manicured lawns and stately facade a stark contrast to the turmoil roiling within its walls. Celeste, Jack, and Richard approached cautiously, with Emma safely ensconced in a secure location under the watchful eye of trusted allies. As they neared the garden where the fateful photograph had been taken all those years ago, tension crackled in the air like electricity before a storm. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the grounds and adding an ominous atmosphere to their approach. "Whatever happens," Celeste said softly, her voice steady despite her racing heart, "we face it together." Jack nodded. "And I was wondering if you'd have the courage to come," Theodore said, his voice weary but tinged with a hint of pride. Senator Blackwood stepped forward, his piercing blue eyes, so similar to Celeste's, scanning their faces. "It's time we had a long overdue conversation," he said gravely. What unfolded over the next few hours was a tale so intricate and shocking that it left them all reeling. Senator Blackwood revealed that he and Celeste's mother had indeed had an affair, but it was more than a mere indiscretion. They had been in love, working together to expose a deep-seated conspiracy that reached the highest levels of government and industry. The Worthington family, with its vast wealth and connections, had been unwittingly used as a pawn in a larger game of power and control. Theodore Worthington II, Celeste and Jack's grandfather, had discovered the truth and had been working to protect them all, even at the cost of his own reputation. "Your mother," Senator Blackwood said, his voice thick with emotion, "she was the bravest person I've ever known. She sacrificed everything to protect you both and to ensure that the truth would one day come to light." The revelation that their mother had been a central figure in this web of intrigue and heroism left Celeste and Jack breathless. The image of the young maid they had conjured in their minds transformed into that of a courageous woman who had given her life for justice. As the story unfolded, it became clear that Evelyn's death was no suicide, but a desperate attempt by the true villains to maintain control as their grip on power began to slip. The kidnapping attempt on Emma had been a last-ditch effort to regain leverage. "But why come forward now?" Richard asked, his investigator's instincts still sharp. Theodore sighed heavily. "Because the endgame is upon us. The evidence you've gathered, combined with what we've been compiling for years, is enough to bring down not just a family empire, but to reshape the entire power structure of this nation." As night fell and security lights flickered on around the estate, they all realized they stood on the precipice of a moment that would change history. The truth, in all its complex and painful glory, was finally laid bare. But even as the pieces fell into place, a new tension arose. Senator Blackwood, despite his involvement in exposing the conspiracy, was still a man with political ambitions. The revelation of this scandal on the eve of a presidential election would have far-reaching consequences that none of them could fully predict. Celeste found herself torn. This man was her biological father, a key to her past, and potentially the next president of the United States. But he was also a symbol of the very power structures that had caused so much pain and suffering. As they debated their next moves, weighing the personal against the political, the greater good against individual justice, a series of loud explosions rocked the estate. The sky lit up with the harsh glare of floodlights, and the whir of helicopter blades filled the air. "FBI, nobody move!" a voice boomed through a megaphone. In that chaotic moment, as federal agents swarmed the garden, Celeste locked eyes with Jack. In that silent exchange, they communicated volumes. Whatever happened next, they would face it as family. Not the family that had been built on lies and secrets, but the one they had forged through shared struggles and unwavering loyalty. As they were led away for questioning, Celeste felt a strange sense of relief wash over her. The truth, in all its messy, complicated glory, was finally out. But little did she know that the most profound revelation, the one that would truly test the bonds of her newfound family, was yet to come. The following weeks were a whirlwind of interrogations, legal proceedings, and media frenzy. The exposure of the vast conspiracy rocked the nation to its core, leading to a series of high-profile arrests and resignations that reached the highest echelons of power. The Worthington Empire crumbled, its fall sending shockwaves through the business world and reshaping the political landscape. Amidst the chaos, Celeste, Jack and Emma found themselves at the center of a storm they had helped create. Their story, of long-lost siblings reunited, of a mother's sacrifice, of a family's dark secrets, captivated the public imagination. They were hailed as heroes by some, vilified by others, but through it all, they clung to each other, their bond strengthened by the trials they had faced together. As the dust began to settle, Celeste received an unexpected invitation. Senator Blackwood, her biological father, requested a private meeting. With trepidation, she agreed, and found herself sitting across from him in a secure location, away from the prying eyes of the media. "Celeste," he began, his voice heavy with emotion, "I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I want you to know the whole truth, the part of the story that even Theodore didn't know." What followed was a revelation that shook Celeste to her core. Senator Blackwood explained that he and Celeste's mother had been part of a deep cover operation, working to expose corruption from within. Their affair, their love, had been real, but it had also been part of their cover. "Your mother," he said, tears glistening in his eyes, "she made the ultimate sacrifice. When she discovered she was pregnant with you, she knew that the danger was too great. She chose to hide you with the Worthingtons to give you a chance at a normal life." The senator went on to reveal that Jack's existence had been unknown to him until recently. It seemed that Celeste's mother had protected Jack in a similar manner, ensuring his safety by placing him with her own mother, away from the dangerous world she inhabited. As Celeste absorbed this information, a mix of emotions swirled within her: anger at the lies, admiration for her mother's bravery, and a complex cocktail of feelings towards the man before her, her biological father. "I'm stepping down from the presidential race," Senator Blackwood announced, "but I'm hoping that perhaps we could get to know each other. You, Jack, Emma, you're my family, the family I never knew I had." Celeste sat in silence for a long moment, weighing his words. Finally, she spoke, her voice steady. "I can't promise anything, but I'm willing to try, for my mother's sake and for the sake of the truth she fought so hard to protect." As she left the meeting, Celeste felt as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. The final piece of the puzzle had fallen into place, and while the picture it revealed was complex and sometimes painful, it was also filled with love, sacrifice, and the enduring power of truth. In the months that followed, Celeste, Jack, and Emma worked to build a new life. They used their inheritance, both the wealth that remained from the Worthington estate and the moral legacy of their mother's courage, to establish a foundation dedicated to government transparency and supporting whistleblowers. Their journey had transformed them. Celeste, once defined by her status as a Worthington heiress, now found purpose in using her skills and resources to fight for justice. Jack, who had once felt alone in the world, discovered the strength that came from family and purpose. And little Emma, too young to fully understand the tumultuous events, grew up surrounded by love and the unshakable bond between her father and aunt. As for Senator Blackwood, he slowly but surely became a part of their lives. It was a complicated relationship, fraught with the weight of the past, but also filled with the potential for healing and new beginnings. One sunny afternoon, as Celeste watched Jack and Emma playing in the park, she reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this point. From a chance encounter on a rainy night to unraveling a conspiracy that changed the course of history, their lives had been transformed in ways they could never have imagined. She thought of her mother, the unsung hero whose sacrifice had made all of this possible. In that moment, Celeste made a silent vow to honor her mother's legacy by living a life dedicated to truth, justice, and the unbreakable bonds of family. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the park, Celeste joined Jack and Emma in their play. Their laughter echoed through the air, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of love to overcome even the darkest of secrets. Their story, Celeste realized, was far from over. It was, in many ways, just beginning. And whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, bound by blood, choice, and the enduring legacy of truth.